photographs. Hey. Well, that's fine. You don't have to, you can have the camera aiming down. We can see your, we don't have to see your unshowered face. But let me invite you and we'll aim our cameras down. Copy to clipboard. Edit. Paste. Chat. Okay, let me, so I'm gonna change my camera view here. Camera back, camera. Okay, so while Melissa is getting herself prepped, this is not easy, but I'll try to do it this way. First of all, I did get some pens back from Miss Marilyn, and she was unable to get ink in this pen, which is understandable because look at the sack. The sack is one of these sacks that one sometimes gets that end up not working. And I don't know what, when I put it in the pen, it was fine. So somehow, the pen, when it, or the sack, when it connects with ink or something, causes it to do this, which is not what sacks are supposed to do. So they just crumble and deteriorate. And I hear from many people that the sacks that are presently made by, or that were made by a company of some sort, had the wrong recipe or did something wrong, but it's something I can't tell initially. So it's frightening because I try to fix pens for people and they end up having these faulty, if this was a car, they would be recalled. Any fountain pen fixed by Pierre Gustafson between these dates have to be recalled. The problem is I do have lots of sacks from, that some are good, some are bad, but I don't know the difference. I can't tell what the difference is. So Anyway, so this is a pen that I sent to Marilyn. I thought she would really love it, but she found that the diameter of the pen was too thin for her to use. And so I learned something by this pen's experience in this person's hand. And so now I know no thin pens for Marilyn. They were too thin. So my crystal ball was not functioning very well. This is a Carter pen, I think, made by the Carter Company, and it's a super right pen or super fine or whatever the S meant. It was their lesser. Here's Melissa. Hello there.
Hello, I'm just trying to turn my camera around.
There we go. There you go.
There we go.
You have in fact switched it. So I will do a little synopsis here of what we will watch. Melissa is a modern fountain pen user.
I'm not happy about it.
And you're not happy about that?
Yes, no.
Yes, no. Okay. That's very clear. Yes, you agree that you're unhappy. Well, I have two modern pens that Miss Marilyn Darling sent me, and these are copies of the sort of 51 that are manufactured in China, and I don't know what they're called. Wing Sun, I think, is one, and another one is a different one. I don't know what, a Hero pen or something. So I'm going to be testing out modern pens, and you're going to be testing out old ones. So somehow the world will be in balance because of that. So the pen that Melissa got from me initially is a Eversharp Skyline pen with a rubbery, flexible nib, and so that one, if you can put ink like Waterman, or what ink did you put in it?
I put in a vintage ink. I put in Parker.
Okay, good.
I didn't want to put any modern inks into it. I thought vintage would be good.
Parker's good. What can I ask? What kind of Parker ink?
The
Quink.
The Quink, yes, the Quink.
Okay, good. There was a Parker ink called Parker Penman ink that was made for a time. Beautiful colors, but it was really gummy and thick.
Yeah, no, I don't have any of that.
And so Quink is good. So Quink is a good one. So so do you have the letter that I sent you?
I do. It's right. Let me just put this down. Ready to go.
So you can see there I was using rather shitty paper, just printer paper. So there's a little bit of, it wasn't great paper. There's probably a little bleeding there or whatever. So just sort of ignore that. But you can see the thick lines that are there. So you can make a line that's that thick with pressure without damaging it.
Without pushing too hard. Let's just
you have to push. You have to push kind of hard, but remember to have the back of the pen aiming toward your shoulder as close as you can, and just make a line. Start fine at the top and sort of pull it straight down toward your belly. And as you do it, keep on pressing harder and harder and harder. Just make a straight line going down to your other finger there. Keep pressing down. Now
okay.
Just go all the way. Make a 6-inch line, 10-inch line. You're not going hard enough.
Okay. I'm just afraid to break it.
No, it can go as wide as the one I sent you.
Oh, all right. All right. Let's try here. Thin to thick.
Okay. Only slightly better. I think that's still. This is the thing with flexible nibs is you feel you're going to break it because You would if that was a steel nib or a less rubbery nib, but you can make it as thick. You don't have to go all the way down, but just press down, make shorter lines, but just press down. Yeah. Okay, so compare it. Actually, use my paper.
All right.
Just go to where those 3 lines are, right there in the middle.
Okay.
Try to make a vertical line. There you go. I mean, that seems.
Yeah, wow. It just really does flex. Like I was afraid it was just gonna like snap off into oblivion,
No.
It's really good.
So now you know, don't make it thicker than that. Don't press down harder. You probably can press it down a little bit harder than you are making those lines. But I think that's very near where it's tells me to stop. But my pens talk to me. And they may not talk to you. So, but I wouldn't make a line that's thicker than the one I made there.
I gotcha.
Now you know how fat it can be. But now look back at my letter and go way to the top, and you see how thin the D is on deer. And that's done by going very fast. It's also going by, I press down to that, and then I go like that. And it was very fast. So try to make, a thick line and then stop and then go very fast the other way.
Speed is key, I'm getting.
Well, speed is key for a number of reasons, but it's okay. That's pretty good. So I think you have the range. You now know what the range is. Now, when you do your regular lettering, spelling words, you need to try to figure out a way to get your hand to give you that range. And just it's practice of, pressing down hard and not pressing down hard. You play
the only letter I've successfully done is an S.
Okay, well, an S is you've got 25 to go, but an S is good. Do you play the piano at all?
I do not. I played the alto sax in high school and the guitar a little bit in high school, but.
Okay. Well, I was thinking of a piano player. I was always one that I never. It was lucky if I got the right key. And I never understood how tempo worked. I didn't know how that worked until I started playing the ukulele and singing along. I never really paid attention to, quarter notes and whole notes. I would just sort of play them on the piano when I was a kid, all the same. And
I can press harder.
I knew how to make a loud noise, but I didn't know how to do the soft pianissimo stuff where you barely caress the. You still have to make contact, the hammer with the string, but how soft can you get? So the soft part, the thin line on a flexible nib is always the harder part. So it's not going to be easy. That S is way funny.
Is it funny?
It's like a ampersand backwards. It's like it's sticking out its belly. It's walking with it's
I don't know how to make S's, I guess.
It's very fun. I mean, funny. I'm not laughing with you. I'm laughing at you. An S. I mean, normally you think of script letters as having a slant to them. In some
way, okay.
And if you make an S vertically rather than a slanted S, there's still sort of the same amount of letter in front and behind the middle line, but your S is very, it's very forward.
Yes, the belly is very forward towards the
bottom,
over here.
Toward the bottom. So, and it's like it's very. It looks almost like a big. I think of a big fat banker, walking down the street with his top hat, and you know, his belly is here and his feet are here, and he's just saying, "Get it, you know, stay away from me, you poor people. I'm walking down the street." But the first thing that's in front is his belly because he's so fat. So that's what I see in your S, which is kind of cute.
I you know, I like just tried to do the what she put on the board when I was little. It didn't really translate.
Well, it's the lettering that we learned as a kid, that alphabet. There were one or two that were used across the United States, and they're both not very good. They're not very graceful letter styles. So, but so, you know, you've got a lot of, you know, slinkies to make and ups and downs to make and M's to make and things like that. But I think now that you have a pen that clearly will
really
show the thick and thin lines, it'll be easier for you to learn what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, this pen is gorgeous.
And again, the hardest part is going to be the well, look at this. This is Marilyn's pens I'm using. So why is this happening?
Because they're new modern fountain pens and they don't care about making them correctly. They just want to make them.
They just want to make them. Okay, well, somewhere it's leaking all over.
Oh no. Oh no.
Let me find out which one it is. It is not that one, it's this one. Now I may have filled them incorrect. Well, no, look at this. This whole inside is.
Oh yeah.
The whole nib is turning around when I turn the back of the pen. So
yeah, like I have modern fountain pens, and it was never my intention to get more of them. People just gave them to me.
Yeah. Well, I really had high hopes for these because I really liked seeing the insides of them and everything. But
yeah.
See, this is not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to come apart while you're using it. And
God, I hope not.
I don't know why it's doing that. So maybe I need to talk to Marilyn about it. But so that does that. This does here. See, there's a gap back here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that gap is supposed to be there. So I was trying to close the gap.
Do you just press down on it? Does it seat into a little clip, like a little U?
Oh,
like
there is a little bit of give back and forth there, which maybe is not. It made me think it wasn't screwed down, so I tried to screw it, and I ended up causing a leak somewhere. So this pen is less good than the other one. But I also noticed when I was trying to make these D's fast for you that one of the pens, like this one, kept skipping. And I don't like pens that skip. And there's ink all the way up here, so I don't know what is causing the trouble with this pen. But and these are ones that she was going to do. Ms. Marilyn was going to do a video about comparing these with the Parker 51.
Oh, so no.
I sent her Parker 51s for her to make the comparison with. And I can't remember whether she had a conclusion that about which she preferred or what she thought was better. I know with 51s, because they're Johnny one note for the most part, there's really they're not sexy enough to get too excited about in terms of calligraphy, but they are great if your intention is to make a line and without variation, which is perfectly important for some people. but I want the line to be made, and I don't want it to skip. So one of them was both leaking and skipping. The other one I think was just skipping. So, now what paper are you using there, Melissa?
It's from Staples. It's like stationery that they had there. It's like a thicker paper.
Okay. Well, next time you go to an art supply store, maybe get a really good paper to use. I like is this Strathmore mixed media paper.
Okay.
And I don't know how much they cost, but I really like it because it doesn't bleed, and it's heavy. It's heavier than any sort of stationery paper, but it has a little tiny bit of a tooth to it that it's really nice paper to use to draw or to write with pens, because it feels substantial. There's a weight to it, a gravitas to the paper. The paper it might make you sit up straighter in the chair when you're writing, when you know that the paper you're using is maybe a little bit more expensive, but it's, I think it's worth a try. I know that Ms. Marilyn wants me to buy at Target or wherever it was, Staples, some Target. It was this, 50-cent tablet or something, and it might be good. It might be smooth enough to hold a ink and a pen line, and it might be perfectly fine. I'll try it out. But because I do drawing, and sometimes I add water to bleed the ink and things like that, I like a paper that's thicker. So, and they have this. Do you have a Target near your house?
I do, unfortunately for me, because it's right down the street.
Oh, are you? It's just a temptation to go buy something you don't need. Is that it? Or
Mostly paper, because they have like a really big like journal section. So
I
I am
see.
always getting another journal to write in that I don't need.
I see. Well, they do have art supplies, and I think they have this kind of paper. Again, Strathmore mixed media, and it might be $10 or something.
That's
It
not
might be,
bad.
and you don't have to get as big a thing as this, but I kind of like having a big piece of paper, because I feel I have more room to practice my swoops and thicks and thins, and so try it out. Strathmore mixed media.
My S's are funny now that I look at them.
Yeah,
The more I look at
they're pretty funny, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Funny looking S's. S's can be funny looking too. So let me go to Marilyn's pen that isn't leaking all over me and figure out. See, this is the one that seems cheaper than the other, but the piston thing didn't really want to suck up any ink. I thought that whole thing would be full of ink. Now maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to fill the converter outside the pen.
Those pens I find it's a converter, right? It's not a plunger.
It's a plunger, but I think the converter comes out. Yes. No. I
Yeah,
don't
those
even know.
ones.
Who knows?
Those ones try to like fill. They like to be filled without the nib. Like they'd like to be put right
Oh,
into
they
the.
want to be filled this way. Just take
Yeah.
it. Okay. Well, that would make sense. The fact that I filled it and it didn't seem to fill was that this volume of air that I was sucking filled up this front of the pen. That's why it didn't get back here, because it was filling up all of this. So the same thing would happen. I think if you filled it here, the ink eventually would fall down, go down toward the bow here, and it would be empty again. So I don't think it can actually fill
All
where
the way.
both this and this are I mean, I could maybe fill it and then take it out and fill it again so that this is full of ink, the front from the first filling, and then I add the second, but that seems like a lot of work
It does
to
seem like a lot of work to fill a pen. I just,
well, it seems like it's the only way to fill the pen completely. Now, maybe you don't need to. I mean, this isn't going through gallons of ink, but so far I like this one better than the other one. The other one, this acts and feels more like a standard 51. The other one is like the modern 51 that has a screw cap,
yeah, I don't like that.
and I don't like that either. And then it has this gold thing that isn't doing anything. And then it has the gold thing back here that isn't doing anything either. And it has a big gold thing here that is not really doing anything. And all of these gold things has probably the minimal amount of actual gold plating on them. And whatever is underneath this gold is going to show in not too long a time. And because this one, is when the cap is on, it's inside of this sort of damp environment. That's gonna be the first one that's gonna start peeling because it's gonna be corroded. So but I really wanted this pen to work. And maybe it was just because I was fidgeting with the back here and causing the ink to spill out.
That
Somewhat.
might have been, you might have been pushing ink out and not knowing it.
I could have done that without knowing it. And so I shouldn't, I mean, my messy hand might be, but this one also seems to skip. And
Yeah, with those modern nibs, they always are skipping or not putting out enough ink. That's just my experience, though.
well,
I mean, maybe
with this one, there's ink all up there. It's all ready to go. So I know that the feed, it's not really a feed problem. It might be just the shape of the actual ball of whatever the metal is that made up that nib. So if the two tines don't always exactly meet together, it's going to skip. So there might be, you need to have better eyesight or an electron microscope or something for me to figure out that exactly. But I don't need to do that.
well, I mean, this nib isn't exactly like straight, and it works wonderfully. So, I mean, I just think modern pen manufacturers don't know about their nibs yet. I think they just produce them and they're like, it's going to work or not.
Some of them might work and some of them don't. And they're just going to hope that the people that get a pen that doesn't work are people that don't write or get hit by a bus.
Or just want to put them on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah, on the way home from the pen shop, they say, walk that way. And knowing full well that that's where the buses come around the blind corner and flatten people every day. But I mean, many people that buy a pen use them once a day, in the office to sign their checks for a business or whatever. Everything else is done on computer, but they still have to sign checks, and they use it for that. And they might be happy with cold starts and stuff. But there are so many journal keepers out there now that really love writing and conveying their thoughts to a piece of paper, and they're the ones that are going to say this pen skips.
Yeah, I can't write like just straight up on a computer. Like, just if I had to like do a first draft of something and someone gave me a computer, I'd need a pen and paper. I couldn't just do that.
Yeah. Well, the guy that I talked to the other day, JP, I think his name is, or PJ. JP. He is the same. He needs that connection with a pen and paper in hand to start the process of his brain I think, getting to the place where he can actually do what he needs to do. Ms. Marilyn cleaned every part of this pen more than she needed to. The inside of the cap or the barrel, which isn't supposed to ever get wet, she washed out. So there's damp in there somewhere.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless her heart. She cleaned them so well. But the drying was less effective, maybe. So, well, good. I'm glad that, I mean, that pen that pen is a very good starter pen for learning how to control get your hand used to pressure and not pressure.
It's a big thing.
A pen that would be a little thinner, a little finer on the fine strokes, and maybe a little bit more flexible. Any pen that's going to be finer is by its nature going to be a little bit more scratchy, and I didn't want that to happen with you on the first pen, because that's sometimes a downer with people. So that pen was carefully selected
It's a
specifically for
very
you.
nice. Hold on, I have to go beat my cat, I think.
Okay. Beat your cat or feed it?
Beat him because he's being a jerk.
Okay.
He got into the cupboard and there's you keep sugar in like a plastic bag so it doesn't get all over your cupboard, and
Yeah.
he's decided the plastic bag is an enemy of the state.
I see. Okay.
So I had to go rescue that from him before I had sugar everywhere.
I see. Good. So, do we want to try out the Esther Brook?
We could. Let me just put this down and get that out carefully.
Anyway, the Eversharp is a good pen to begin your flexible nib experience. Later, I have a feeling you may choose to get a different pen that has a finer nib, maybe as fat at the fat point, but finer toward the thin point. And but that'll be the next one. Okay, so this pen, this is the Esther Brook. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not a poster, are you?
No, well, just on vintage pens, I feel like it puts more wear on them than they need.
Okay. So is that the nib that
Yes.
that was in it? Okay, good. And you made that slinky with that pen? Let me look at
well, my version of the slinky, because I
Okay.
can't quite do the slinky, but
Okay.
yes.
So it's sort of J's, connected J's. Okay, now unscrew that nib.
With the ink in it?
Just with the ink in it, sure. I
Okay.
mean, it's not going to kill it.
All right, just this nib part right here.
You hold the section and you just unscrew the nib, and it should unscrew.
Okay, hold on, I got ink everywhere.
Yeah, that's what happens when you follow my directions, you get ink everywhere.
Okay, so here we go. We're just gonna unscrew this. Wow,
Does it unscrew?
let me try to use a piece of paper, not my fingers.
It may.
Oh, there we go. Yep, it came out.
Good. So unscrew that one, and the feed comes out, everything comes out, and now put in one of your other nibs.
Let me read this one to see what this is. This is 2668. All right, because they have little numbers on the boxes.
Yeah, and the 26 series is the 2000. The 2 in the first digit is better than a 1. But it's not the highest quality ones that they made started with a 9, I think.
Yes, I have
I
one.
don't think they made 1s, 2s, and 9s. There might be another one in there. Maybe there's a 4 in there, and it's just the degree of there were different materials used, and I think the biggest ones, the nicest ones, actually had iridium nibs, and so they cost a little bit more when you bought that kind of a nib,
Just
but
waiting for it
it
to
would
kind
last
of.
longer, you know. So
Maybe I need to dip it.
yeah, just dip it to get the ink flow going. But they all should write differently to some degree, even if they all were the same exact number. They would still write a little bit different, but um,
Ooh, this one's scratchy, but very new, very new.
you know, it's never been used before. And what number is that?
This is a 1555 firm fine grade, it says.
Yeah, 1550. So it's a number one series. So the ones are probably always going to be the scratchiest, because I think the way that they made the nibs on the ones were just using the steel that made up the pen. I may be completely wrong here. People, Esterbrook people would know, but the ones I always found are the least pleasant to use, and they may start out scratchy, and as you use them, the steel will wear down a little bit, and they might become a little less scratchy. So, but none of these are going to be overly flexible. So
Right.
don't expect the slinky routine to be able to work as well. Okay, now try the third one.
All right. Well, the third one's the same as the one you had in it. It's a
Oh,
2-6.
okay, then just leave it the way it is. I mean, you could try it and compare it to the other one, but anyway, so Esterbrook nibs, there's a bunch of different ones. There's some that are actually are flexible, and they're quite rare because people like them. But there's bunches of them. I have others that I can sell you too. So other nibs.
I like the littleness of this pen. It's kind of like it's not, as you can see in my hand, it doesn't quite reach
Uh
up past my whatever you call that part of your body right there.
huh. Yes.
um,
The the the
crook of your hand. I'm not real
yeah,
sure.
maybe crook of your hand. Yeah.
But I don't have really big hands, so when it's a smaller pen, it's easier for me to move around, I guess you would say.
Okay.
Um,
Thinner pen or shorter pen?
Thinner, shorter doesn't really matter. Like it can go
Oh,
like I have one that comes like way up here or
you,
whatever. It's just the thin that gets me. Like
you,
I read an article that said that the reason they're making such big fountain pens is not because people desire them, it's because fountain pen users are getting older and have arthritis.
oh, I see. Okay.
And I understood that. Like you're getting older, your hand hurts. You don't want to hold this thin little tiny stick in your hand and write. You want a nice big thick pen you can grab and not have to,
Okay.
really grab. But I'm a thin. I don't have arthritis yet, so I like the thin pens.
Okay, good. Well, I think thin pens are quite lovely, and there's no reason why. Um, that is the thinner Esterbrook. There was a Esterbrook that's fatter than that. Esterbrook's came in two width sizes. The nibs were all interchangeable regardless, but they made a thin one and a fatter one. So, and that is the thinner. So I'll try to remember that in case I find another Esterbrook that you might like someday down the road. So,
Awesome.
so, well, I'm glad you like the Skyline specifically, because that was a really nice rubbery nib that will allow you to do what you need to do to practice. The Esterbrook was just to send you to match so you could use the nibs you had. but I learned that of the two pens, do you prefer the Skyline or the Esterbrook? Which do you like respect to the thinness?
Uh, hold on. Let me get
I
back out there.
mean, they're not all that
They're
different.
not all that much different. They both are on the thin side. I like
Okay.
that they're not very fat. Like the cap is the fattest thing about this pen right here.
Yeah,
Like
but you
you
don't care
can,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't care about that at all. Like it's got a nice. This is really nice. Like it's not too big. It's like the perfect pot of porridge. It's not too hot. It's not too
Okay.
cold.
Well, I'll remember that too because that's kind of the standard size of these pens. A Waterman 52, Wall Eversharp pen made earlier hard rubber pen or even the metal ones will be a little thinner maybe than that, which
Hmm.
I think you would like. Like you might really like the one that Marilyn sent back to me because this is quite a bit thinner. Um, this is. Do you have an Apple Pencil?
I do not. I switched. I had Apple for the first 10 years it came out, and then I switched to Android.
Okay. Well, the Apple Pencil and the Eversharp are almost identical in yeah, they're almost they're in fact they are. The thinness of the barrel on this pen is the same thinness as the Apple Pencil, which is about the same. It's a little fatter than a regular wooden pencil. And again, I would have thought that Marilyn would have loved it, but she doesn't. It was too thin. And but this is a pen that you might like.
Yeah, that looks really nice and thin and sharp.
So maybe that'll be next in line for you when I put a sack that doesn't fall apart on it.
This
Um,
is this the Ever? Did you say this is the Eversharp, right?
that's
Or the
that's the
Easter?
Eversharp Skyline pen is what that.
This would be a daily writer for me because it's very. So I guess this is really weird. I print my notes and then I write in cursive the stories that I'm going to tell.
Okay.
So this seems to do both really well. Like I can print very clearly,
Uh-huh.
or I can sign my name and
Now, is that the gold nibbed one?
no, this is
No, that's the Esterbrook.
the Estabrook. Yeah,
Okay.
this would be like a daily driver. I think the other one
Okay.
would be more of a I'm intending to really write something very beautifully. This seems like
Okay.
I can scratch out my crappy print. That's
Okay.
just me going really quick. But if I really wanted to print something, and I'm writing fairly fast, I'm not writing very clean. I can really, it just comes right out. It doesn't stutter, it doesn't stop, it doesn't lose ink, which is very frustrating when you're printing very fast and something doesn't
Yeah.
write.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad that you like those because the Esterbrookes they made 1 billion of them because they were the best quality steel nibbed pens I think that were made during the years that they were in business, and um, because of their switchable nibs, it also made it easy for you to go to your pen store and get a replacement nib when they went out, when the one you had stopped working well. And again, if you didn't have a lot of money, you'd buy the cheaper nib, the 1000 series. And if you wanted to upgrade and spend I don't know how much they might have been, maybe even as much as $1 for the nib, you might
Right.
you might get a nib that will last you the rest of your life. But that was $1, and the other nibs were, I don't know, 20 cents. I don't honestly know what these were priced originally, but the pen itself is very well made, and but they still don't have the cachet of a gold nibbed pen. So collectors, there are many collectors of Esterbrook's, but they are mostly kind of ignored by many collectors. You know,
Really?
they might like the very rarest examples of the pens, uh, and but they don't have a love for them like they do for maybe their gold nibbed pens, their Watermans or their Schaefer's or their whatever's. But there are Esterbrook collectors, and there's one guy that has a YouTube channel called Esterbrook College, and
All
he
right.
he I'll see, or Estabrook University. I'll see if I can find that and I'll send you the link to it. But he talks about all the different types of Estabrook nibs, or pens that were out there through their long history of making these things. So if you're interested, if you find that that pen is perfect for you for whatever reason, um, you could get a little collection of all different colors. You know, the black is the least, because it's the the least decorative, I guess. Um,
Right.
the other colors were um, sort of a copper orange color. There was a green and a red and a blue and a silver, and they were sort of pearlescent pens. And then they made some pastel pens that were solid color pastels, white and pink and light green and light blue and some dark blue. And then there were some other ones that were hard rubber, which are really quite old and but also quite nice. So anyway, there's a whole range of Esterbrook's that you can collect if you wanted to. You know, have different pens holding different color inks, or different kind of nibs you can put in different pens. So there's a lot to go on there. And I think during the time when I would sell pens to students and writers back before the interweb, I was one of the few people that would buy Esterbrook pens at a pen show because they were considered too common or too lowly for real collectors to collect. And so I would be able to buy them relatively inexpensively, and I'd put a sack in them and sell them for, this is 30 years ago, sell them for $10 a piece. And 15 if you wanted one in plastic, in nice pretty plastics. And those prices have gone up, of course, in the last 30 years, but it was nice to at one point to be the only person buying them at pen shows, because I could usually they were happy to see me because
Right.
and but I had so many customers. There were articles written about me in the newspaper in Boston.
Okay.
Man repairs old pens, man, does this, and and people would read about this and they'd send me a letter or call me on the phone. I have this old Esterbrook pen from when I was in high school, and it would be a 70-year-old woman calling me wanting to get this fixed, and I would fix it for her, and she just loved it. So
Yeah,
um,
this is a nice pen. I mean, I can see why people would think it's, lower standard than say a 51 or something, just
yeah,
because it's lighter, it's smaller, it does feel not as well constructed, but it's a great pen. It's sturdy, it's
mhm,
writes well, it's a lever fill. I feel like I could drop, I'm not going to, but I feel like if I dropped this,
yeah,
and it landed this way, not this way,
yeah,
it would be just fine.
yeah. They are actually very well made. The plastics were stronger than most other pen companies were using. I find fewer ones that are cracked, The
Mhm.
only flaw in that design, sometimes you'll see the little black button at the top of the pen and at the back of the pen. Sometimes you'll see chips out of those. And I don't know why that happens, but every once in a while you'll see a little tiny chip, like they maybe fell on their bottom or their head, and they crack. But um, but they it's a it's not a functional issue. It won't harm the way the pen writes, but it does make them look less good. You
Right.
also you also find scads of them, especially the black ones. In fact, I think only the black ones that will say property AT&T or property of. There's one. There's a. I had dozens of these things that all came from one collector who didn't like them. They were all black, and they all were Erie school system, and each one of
Oh,
them had a number. So these were given to students in some Erie, Ohio, or wherever the Erie school system was, um, for their students, and presumably at the end of the day, they were collected by the teacher to be used next year when they were teaching the new class, because they all had numbers. You wouldn't do that.
right.
You wouldn't have to number them if you didn't want them back. You didn't have to account for them. So they weren't given to the students. They were loaned for handwriting classes, I presume. So you see a lot of black ones, especially, that have writing on them. It might say U.S. government. It might say uh, a company name, because they were the cheapest ones that they sold. The prettier, quote, prettier plastic ones cost an extra dollar or 50 cents or something. I don't know what they were,
And that was a
but
lot back then. That was a lot of money back then to just be
yeah,
spending
yeah.
on a
So
pen.
again, if you were to look at the history of Esterbrook, you'd find out all of the actual factoids rather than my estimations of facts, my alternative facts, as Kellyanne Skankway calls them. But what's she doing now? Is she still in prison? She should be in prison. But anyway, she's probably
Something
very
doing something wrong.
doing. She's probably doing something wrong somewhere.
Somewhere she's breaking a law.
She's breaking a law somewhere. But anyway, my facts that I'm giving you are just, they're vague at best, inaccurate, completely inaccurate at worst. But I think roughly a plain black pen will cost less than a plastic color marbleized pen in almost every pen company. um, had basic black pens, which were a little bit cheaper, I think, in some cases. uh, there was a time when it didn't make any difference. They priced them the same, but um, I think in Esterbrook's case, the black was the cheaper.
I don't mind the black. Like I
Yeah,
do like I do like colors. Like don't get me wrong, blue is my
yeah,
favorite color. I would love to have a bunch of blue pens, but
yeah,
black is not a deal breaker. It's a sharp looking, classy pen.
yeah. Let me see if I can find an image of Esterbrook pen colors.
Let's see. Now I want to take this
So
nib out.
here's Esterbrook J series. Price is $55. I guess you buy one. Yeah, quantity one. So you can buy on eBay. You can buy these. So
Oh,
here's the green, and it's sort of
it's like a
marbly. Sort of
yeah.
it sort of looks kind of like wood grain, or um, tiger's eye. So there's the green and the red and the blue and the copper. They probably had a different name for copper. I don't know what that is. And then the basic black and another and gray. Why did they? So these are the standard colors you find. Now you can also find rarer colors of Esterbrook's that have like here are the pastels. At one point, pastels were really popular with pen collectors
Really?
because they were the only time that usually a normal pen collector would get excited about Esterbrook's is if someone was gonna. I hate Pinterest. It wants so here are the pastels. So these are all
Hmm.
solid color and they're short. They're shorter pens than the one that you have.
Wow.
So they're I guess they were made for girls. Sorry, but so those are those. They also made I guess that's white, that one. So, and sometimes the white one had red ends, which was a nurse's pen. So here's another one here. I'm trying. These are modern Esterbrook's. I'm trying to find the vintage ones. Okay, here's the vintage one. So they also made this kind of a clip.
A little diamond. Okay. Kind of looks
And
like a Parker do-fold clip.
yeah, and these had. Here's another one that's. It doesn't have the clip that looks like this is just a flat, silver colored plate that says Esterbrook on the top, and it doesn't have a thing on the bottom. It's blank. It's empty on the bottom. It doesn't have these little dubers on them. Then later on they made ones that look like this with a metal cap. So there's a full, fun line of collecting these things.
Oh yeah.
If you really like them, and there's nothing wrong with them. And so here's another one. What's your favorite J series size? So SDJ, and I don't know these different. I don't pay attention, and I treat essentially almost every Esterbrook the same. And someone was scolding me for doing that, for being too, the black ones were cheaper. They were more expensive when they had colors, and the pastels were the most expensive because everyone wanted those. But I didn't charge more for the fatter version of your pen than the thinner. I didn't charge more for whether it had one of those cutaway clips. To me, it was an Esterbrook. It was an Esterbrook in color or black and white or pastel. Those were my three different price ranges. But other people pay a lot more attention to way too many, for my mind, more details. And I just never bothered to do that. But you will find people that do bother, and they do know for some reason that this particular J series of Esterbrook made in 1942 is really rare. Okay, well, good for you for knowing that factoid. I may remember it, I may not. So anyway, so I will email you or text you the cost of that Esterbrook. Or I could just I'll just tell you right now, it's $25. So it's less than half what you can buy it on eBay. So,
well, I can tell you it's sold, but I can tell you that I do need that damn stimulus money to come to
okay,
my
that's
bank
fine.
account.
I mean, anytime you do it, you can, when you get it, you can do it. I just wanted to let you know what it is now. And I don't have that many Esterbrook's in my collection, in my shop right now. I But when I get them, I can, if you like them, I can put them aside. Now the color ones are going to be more.
Right.
I don't know how much more yet. I have to think a little tiny bit. I did sell a color one recently to Brussels, so I want to find out what I charge him for that one. But so it'll be that price, whatever it is. But I also probably should pay attention to what people in the real world are getting for these, because if
You should.
suddenly the Esther market is they're $100 a piece, I probably should know it. I don't think they are. 55 seems higher, but entirely understandable.
Well, I mean, how old is this pen I'm holding? You got to think like this.
It's from the 40s, I would guess. But again, you know, you can do the research. Hi, Tasha. So, and the pen is going to write better. An Esterbrook with a nice nib is going to write better than the $200 Parker 51 monstrosity that they're building today. So,
Oh, good God. Yeah, that thing with the screw-on cap and the
yeah.
crappy plastic. Ugh.
So anyway, really any amount of money people want to charge is defensible.
Right.
In my case, though, I try to provide pens that, in my mind, are still relatively common at as low a price that I can, and in that case, you know, that's what it is. So, but I'm glad you like it, and because of the way that the 51 the Esterbrook's are made, there's so many different kind of nib styles that you can buy that just screw into that pen. So you can essentially have 10 pens in one if you've got 10 different nibs.
All right. You know, I don't think that lady knew what she was selling when she was selling those dip pens. She just had a bunch of a bunch of these and in there for $20.
Yeah, I think that's a good price. And you know, if you go online and want to buy just a mint in the box Esterbrook nib, you're going to pay that much for one pen nib by itself, I would assume.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people would sell them for less than that. I, you know, when I first bought my pen company, I had hundreds of Esterbrook nibs in their little tiny boxes, never before used, and I just took them all out of the little tiny boxes and dumped them in a drawer because it was just the little tiny boxes just got in the way of me.
Yeah, that little guy.
And you know, I could kick myself for doing that, but you know, again, I don't. The pens that were in the little tiny boxes, if they were scratchy number 1000 series pens, they would be scratchy whether they were in the box or out of the box. It didn't make any difference. So there was no reason for me to keep them mint and everything. I wish I had now, because they're easy to see the numbers because the numbers are written on the box.
Right.
You don't have to get out your loop to read the number on the pen. And once I realized that the number 9000 series was really, really good, it would be easier to put those aside when I could read the numbers on the box. So, but anyway, but Esterbrook's are really good pens. For a non-gold nib pen, I think they were the best made pen. They had really good spring bars. They had good nibs. They had good feeds. The plastics were good, with the exception of those little ends, which tended to chip if they were dropped. But other than that, they're great pens.
No, it's not a cheap feeling pen. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break in my hand. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna break the steel nib or anything.
No. Good. Well, this was fun. Um,
This was fun.
uh, and your hands are much cleaner than mine. Uh,
Mostly.
well, um, so I'll try to figure out again. I probably was just fidgeting with trying to get that gap closed and caused the ink to get in the in the cap, which then dribbled out onto my hand. I don't think the pen itself is leaking. I think it just got ink in the cap. Um, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find out what my brother and I are going to do today with respect to this house and my dad's estate and things like that. We're going to make another.
Well, I wish you good luck.
Yeah, it's the decisions are going to be made slowly, but inching toward resolution.
Oh,
But we're also bringing some stuff that my father owned and collected and that we now own and are going to try to sell through an online auction place to get money so we can pay taxes on this house and things like that. So,
all right. Well, good luck, Pierre.
okay, well, thank you. And it was
Thank
good
you.
seeing you today. And do watch that video that I sent you with Finkel. I don't know if I sent it to you, Tasha. I think I did, though. Maybe not. I'll find the link and send it to you. It's this guy this British curator of the British Museum, and he studies cuneiform writing by ancient Sumerians and Babylonians, and that's his shtick. And he has a big white beard. He looks sort of like he was playing Santa Clauses most of the time. Big white beard, big white mustache, and he gives these lectures, and occasionally gets sort of huffy and upset, and he sort of scolds the audience um, if they're not paying attention enough, and he sort of treats them like they're all in second grade, which is kind of cute. But he did this video about he started um, this academy, I guess, or this place where um, people are invited to donate to, rather than throwing them out, old diaries, family diaries that they inherited, and to be saved and cataloged in this essentially this library of diaries. And he made a really interesting point that what you write in your pajamas at night in bed is the truth. You're not trying to spin it in any particular way. You know, if Kellyanne Conway had a diary, we'd see, God, I can't believe how stupid this man is in every single page.
Right. Well, if you could write it all, I'm not sure there would be a lot of like real good words in there.
I would think, but she might confide in her diary the truth. And most people did write the truth in their diaries, as they saw it anyway, the truth that they believed. And this guy was just saying how valuable that is, not for him personally, but for future historians um, to know what individuals thought about what was happening around them, whatever it was. And the one that I really thought was cute was this girl in the 60s had a uh, a diary that was full of stuff, including coupons for free lipstick and things like this that she kept in her diary. But in the back pocket was a little um, ballpoint pen graph, paper that she made herself with little lines and going across and horizontal lines going down. And she had the names of boys at the top and little X's on how well they kissed. And, and that's so cute, ranking, you know, Bobby was a 6 and Tim was a 10 and Clyde was a 0. She had to make an extra line for him because he's too bad. So
Oh,
anyway,
poor boy.
it's anyway, he and this other archive or other curator from another museum, and a woman that got a PhD in diaries. That's the only person in the world that got a PhD in the study of diaries, are working at this building or are cataloging this collection. And so they've got, I think, 15,000 diaries so far. And I probably have 300 in Boston.
Wow.
And most of them, almost all of them are pretty dull. There's, they would say, Mrs. Smith buried today. It was always buried. It wasn't died. It was buried. So maybe they didn't know that she died when she died. It was because this was before telephones and things like that. But by the time they realized she had died and that she was going to be buried, it was something that she would have been able to write in her diary. And it would be things like bought stuff for dresses. Now the word stuff was the common word for cloth back in the olden days. So it wasn't just a generic, like I'm going to go to the store to buy stuff. If I said that sentence in 1890, they would know I was going to go buy clothing, fabric to build clothes out of, because I used the word stuff. It's generic now, but most of the things I have are like that, or what the high temperature was and the low temperature, and whether it was windy or snowy, or whether Alfonso, the hired help, milked the cows that day or whatever. It was really boring, 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 boring. But there's one diary I found. It was a composition book. And this is really interesting, Melissa, because it sort of has to do with what you're doing right now. First of all, he thought he was the best thing that ever happened to women folk since sliced bread. He thought
Oh, good.
he thought his sexual prowess was right top notch. I don't know what he thought of his kisses, but
They were a 10.
he would think that he was a 10 with that other girl. Anyway, he talked about he was also an artist, and he would talk about his art is not understood by people. No one understands my art. Now, this is a diary, so it may not be true that he was the best lover that was ever on this planet, but he certainly thought he was. Anyway, but it's one of the very few times that I've ever found written by a regular person his views about fountain pens, because he was at some sort of garage sale or antique shop or junk store or something, and he bought a couple of Esterbrook's. And this was in the 60s, and the sack still worked, and he had ink, and he might have been old enough to have used Esterbrook's when he was in school, but he hadn't used them in a while, and he was commenting how great they were, these Esterbrook's that he just bought at the junk shop. And pen collecting wasn't a thing, so he wasn't doing it for our benefit or other collectors. He wasn't showing off. He was just sort of surprised at how well they worked. The only other time that anyone, like I would think in this collection of diaries in this place in London, there would be at least one page in this entire collection that would have someone say, I'm writing with my new Schaefer snorkel, and it's really cool. I would think that they would, because they bought this cool pen that
Right. You want
you
to comment on it. You want
you
somebody to
you,
know
you
that it
might
was cool.
and you're writing and you might come, but I've never really found that anywhere except in the Boston University or Boston College, I forget which one, collection. They have a collection of George Bernard Shaw's letters. And there's a actual letter that he wrote. Must be a copy, because why would they? Maybe the person that got it donated it. But it was, "Dear Mr. Smith," whatever, and it goes on with a sentence saying about his health. He said, my health is degringolated. I had to look that up. It means
That's a fantastic word.
degringolating. His health is failing, and but I'm still writing. I'm working, whatever it was. And then he got to the point of the letter. He said, "The pens on my desk are as follows," and he wrote a line with each of the different pens he had. So this guy asked George Bernard Shaw, this famous playwright, "What fountain pens do you use, Mr. Shaw?" And Mr. Shaw wrote a letter back saying, "These are the pens I use. I use this Waterman for swanky writing. I use this Swan for red ink. I use this Ford's pen, not Henry Ford, this Ford pen for with a soft nib." I don't know what he used for the word flexible, but he didn't say flexible. But he said for swanky writing, and it was really cute. And I made a copy, a Xerox of it. They let me do that. And I used to have that somewhere, but I could go get another one. But I'd really love there to be I every once in a while I ask pen collectors if they've ever run across this stuff, and no one has said that they have. But I'm sure that they're out there. They have to be out there somewhere.
Well, now I'm going to dedicate just one journal entry to writing about my pens. Not that they are
Okay.
featured in there, but now I feel like I need to let the future audience know what I'm writing with.
Okay. Well, I think it's fun. It's just interesting. We all know. I mean, I don't know whether anyone said, I got in my. They might say, "I inherited my father's pocket watch. It's at a Waltham, blah blah blah. Dear diary, I have a new watch. It was my father's." Or, "Dear diary, I bought a new watch, and it cost a week's wages or whatever it was, or more, to buy a good watch or a good pen." So it was a big event. But I don't even know whether people convey that in their diaries. "I have a new car. I bought a new car. I really love my new car." They talk about, "My husband came home with lipstick on his
Right.
collar," or whatever whatever they say to their, they don't waste their time talking about things. Maybe they talk about stuff, feelings, and Mrs. Smith buried today, important things, not what pen they're using. One part of that lecture, though, that this guy gave, he had a big bag full of little tiny pencils, and these were pencils that came with diaries. Sometimes diaries had a little space in the spine that you could slip a pencil in. So they came with these pencils, and he had a big bag of pencils, and he said, "Where are the diaries that go along with these pencils?" And probably the pencils, if I was going through grandma's stuff after she was buried, I might, "Oh, hi. Oh, yeah, Judge Lance Ito." Yeah, Judge Lance Ito. Anyway, you would, as you're going through grandma's stuff, you would find this diary, and you might say, "Oh, who's going to read this?" and throw it away. "Oh, there's a pencil here." So they take the pencil out and put it in their pencil drawer and throw the diary away. So Neville Bedford is reminding me of Lance Ito, the judge during the
O.J. Simpson?
O.J. Simpson trial. He collected hourglasses. If you remember, his desk was full of hourglasses, which were stupid. And, but he also collected fountain pens. And someone, I think Pen World magazine maybe found this out or knew this, and they asked him to, or was it me? Did I ask? Did I send him a letter? I had this letter anyway that he responded to someone with the pens that he liked, and he loved Vacuumatics, if I remember correctly. So I made a display at the Boston Pen Show that had a bunch of Vacuumatics along with this letter that I printed out. So I don't think he sent it to me. I think he sent it to someone, and I got a copy of it. But Neville, would you like to join us, Neville? You have your pants on? Neville Bedford is a friend of mine from Boston who is a pen lover and a crackpot. Not in that order. Crackpot is always going to be front and center, I think. And Neville is the one that gave me the book that I use for my dinner party things. So Neville knows my taste too. So he gifted me this beautiful guest book. I don't know if Neville wants to join us. Maybe he's putting his pants on.
Yes, you can see I am not strong in the drawing skills.
Well, I'm looking at it. I'm just trying to understand what you're drawing, because I don't recognize that pen based on what you're giving me yet.
Just a random nondescript pen.
That way. Okay. Neville, I'm going to try to send you a link to this Irving Finkel lecture about diaries. If I can figure out how to do that, I might do it through. Are you on Instagram? I'll figure out how to send it to you somewhere, but it's this new archive of diaries that Irving Finkel and a couple of other people are building in London to save the impressions of the hoi polloi. And he was saying how none of these people are politicians. You know, he, with pride, he said that there's no one famous, but diarists can. I mean, I think some diarists probably know that their stuff will be read and published sometimes, so they might be a little bit more careful about what they write. But my friend in Boston loves reading diaries, and especially the diary of Samuel Pepys, and he likes the Warhol diaries. He read the ones by Noel Coward. And there's one book that he loved, and it was just a year, January 1, and it goes to January 2 and January 3, and it's just excerpts of what people throughout the last 300 years that were just chosen at random, or not so much at random, wrote on that day. So it could be Samuel Pepys in 1790, or it could be Noel Coward in 1972, wrote on January 2nd. And there's maybe 3 or 4 or sometimes more people on each date. So you're just getting a snippet of their life. There's nothing necessarily important about that date, but there was something that he put together, that the person who compiled this put them together to be read like a book, where you start with the first page and you end with the last page. Though you could conceivably open this book up to any page and read anything, because none of them connect to each other.
That sounds amazing. Just like the
Yeah,
same day through the years, like what's going on, who's thinking what,
yeah,
what they're
yeah.
doing.
And days that are like important, like Christmas or New Year's Day. I don't think the things that he recorded or he chose to record actually have anything to do with that particular day. But it might have been, on some day throughout the year, it might have been someone's birthday, and they might have said, "I'm now officially an old man," or whatever. And but it's called The Devil's Chronicle or something. I'll try to find that book up, because it was really a neat way to see the commonality of human concerns about life and love and death and politics and
Well, and it's changed,
war
hasn't it? It's
and peace.
definitely changed over the years how we view death and how we view politics and
Yeah,
everything like that. So it's good to look back and see what they were
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'll try to find the name of that book. I have it in Boston. I found a hardcover version of it that I gave to the friend that likes it. Um, but it was after he had already read the book, so he didn't necessarily need to reread it. I just thought that a hardcover version would be nice. But it was really it's like the shittiest hardcover book I've ever seen. It had the worst paper, really thick, but you wouldn't even need a time lapse movie of it decaying. You could almost see it happening because it was so pulpy.
Oh God.
And the binding was not very well done. It was like, and I don't know why they would have bothered with this book that probably had a limited audience anyway. There might be 20 people in the world that would ever want to read this book. But I could see why they would make a crappy version of Alice in Wonderland or something.
Right.
But this was a relatively strange book to do that with. But I'll try to find the name of that book. You might enjoy finding it on
Thank you.
Amazon or something. I think any diarist or journal keeper would like that kind of a book, just because you see pages, one or two samples of hundreds of different people and how they treat their diaries and what they want to show. Um, Andy Warhol's diaries are pretty dry.
Yeah, he doesn't see like I know his paintings are interesting, but he just didn't seem like a very
Yeah.
interesting guy.
He would talk about how much things cost. I can't believe I paid this much for dinner, and it wasn't. And Noel Coward was, he wasn't necessarily upper class, but he certainly was very sophisticated, uh, upper middle class by the time he was writing these things. Playwright and songwriter and stuff. So he knew all sorts of fancy people, and he would have dinner with these fancy people, and um, he had very strong opinions about the Beatles, for example, which were not positive, but but
Who doesn't like the Beatles? Who's like, no, I don't like the Beatles.
well, he was
Strange man.
he was born in 1900, and he was a songwriter, and maybe he thought the songs were too simple or something. I don't know what. And
Fair.
how dare they be more popular than I am? So who knows I don't know what he said, but I know that he didn't particularly like them, and he didn't when Gandhi was assassinated. I think he thought that was perfectly fine.
Jeez.
He was again friends of royalty. I mean, actual friends of the Queen Mum, and she would come to his house in Jamaica for dinner. He was fancy enough to have friends like that, so he probably admired the British Empire and thought that India should always be under the control of England rather than the native population. So reading him is different than reading, a socialist or a communist or someone else. So it's fascinating. Um, Samuel Pepys confided in his diary all of his little extramarital affairs, and which were numerous and quite
I would
often
never write that down. I don't know why people write that down to be discovered.
quite often resulted in him getting some little critters that would live on him for a while.
Oh no! Oh no!
So, but he wrote about it. He was very funny in how he described these things. He saw the world, or part of the world, as very funny. So it's written sort of comedically, and so I think you'd find it interesting. So I'll see if I can find the name of that book and send you a link to it. But Melissa, what you should do is watch this guy, the Irving Finkel link that I sent you, because
Right.
he's entertaining himself. He's somewhere between a crotchety old man and a crotchety young child.
Well, he sounds fantastic.
He seems kind of crotchety, but it's an affected crotchetiness, I think. And he knows how silly he's being, I think, and how silly humans are, I think, though he realizes the value of knowing things and studying them. And he mainly talks about cuneiform writing. And he did a lecture about ghosts and what ancient people thought of ghosts and how ghosts were known to exist, and how to keep ghosts away, and these are all things that he read in his books, in these cuneiform tablets that exist everywhere in the British Museum, where he spends his working day. So anyway, well, good. I'm glad you're having fun, and now you've got a pen that you can push-pull, but I'm glad you're liking the Esther book as much as you do.
I do. It's a really nice writer.
Okay, good. Well, thank you again, Melissa, and I'm going to see what is happening with my day here, so we'll catch you later. And see you later, Neville. Have safe driving, and don't text and drive at the same time, Neville. Unless you have a chauffeur, you can do this. Bye.
Bye.